All right, I'm going to show you how to paint this barn, or how to go about painting barns. We've been doing vegetation, so now we're going to do a man-made structure here, which is not too difficult, but anyway. So the barn that I'm doing is the one on the old barn photo. It's got the gray barn in the background. So I just gave it a little context. I painted the sky and a couple of the trees in here just to kind of give it a little bit of setting. So it's a gray barn, so I'm going to start by mixing up a gray using my, probably need it a little bit lighter than that, use my burnt umber and blue. Get a nice gray going there. Okay, let's see, test that out. Okay, and you can really, except for the roof is like a metal roof, pretty light. You can pretty much leave that white, and it's okay to have a little bit of white here and there. So initially it's pretty easy because you can just make the whole barn like a light gray. Grab a little bit more water to tone that down. And it's pretty simple, so you can just kind of use your straight edge brush, kind of just pull it along the edge of the barn roof there. Okay, and I've got my, I'm going to do it, I'll get in a little overhang there. Getting into my green a little bit. That's okay, which is fine. And I'm just going to pull that across. Fade it into my tree over here. And initially, actually I probably should have done, well, no, I'll leave that. I can do some more dark. Actually, I'll let that dry. And maybe get that corner there a little bit more. This is all going to be a little bit darker over here anyway. If you have your greens ready to go, you could paint some of your grasses. I don't really have any of my green ready to go. Maybe I can grab some real quick. I need some raw sienna. Get some dull green. It's kind of a more, it's probably already dried out on me. I could probably just get it wet. Wonder if that's already, yeah, sometimes I like to start my grasses while my barn is, or building is still kind of wet, but that didn't quite work. Got the road there because it already started to dry. It was more of an afterthought. I could always repaint the barn. I like to get a little bit of that grass bleeding into the barn to kind of make it look like, you know, tall grass is kind of leaching up into that. But that's not a, it's not a big deal. But if you do have your greens ready to go, you get some of that back bleed that kind of sets that up. So you can kind of let that dry. Maybe I will pause this real quick and hit that with a dryer and come back. Okay, that's dry now. So I'm going to mix up my, maybe I'll do this with my small brush here now. I'll mix up some more gray, but go considerably darker now, a little bit darker anyway, to do this shadow side. And then I'm going to go even darker still after that. So I've got my board tilted here a little bit, and I'm going to start at the top and kind of work down. Okay, and what I'm going to do, kind of weird, I'm going to throw a little bit of brown, my burnt sienna in here, and just let that kind of like bleed in just for a little bit of color in there, so that it adds a little bit of warmth and it's just not all Whoops, the cool gray. Kind of dried out on me. A little bit more liquid. That cool gray in there. Okay, bring that over. That corner's got to come over just a little bit there. There we go. And I might even soften that a little bit. Add a little bit of water in there, just to get a little bit of backlighting, especially when you get near the ground, because you get a little, lift a little color out of there, or a little darkness out, because you get a little like light reflecting off of the ground, and it kind of backlights that a little bit. And plus I want to come in there real dark. And let's get my corner more plumb here. Okay. And then I'm going to take a little bit lighter gray, add a little bit of water to that. And I'm going to paint this. Well, I should let that dry. I'm going to try and get an impatient. I'm going to paint this little shadow underneath the overhang here. If that bleeds a little bit, not a big deal. Okay. Fade that out at the end here. I didn't paint in my tree at the end, but it's okay. I'll paint that dark enough. So then we can let this dry. Okay, and then we will paint like a texture, the barn texture. We'll just take like a straight brush. Actually, I can show you how we can do that on the roof here a little bit. So you got to have your paint pretty thick. And, well, not necessarily real thick, but you might want to, because you don't necessarily want it dark, but you might want to scrap a piece of paper and kind of test this. Take in your brush. Whoops, see, now initially there was too much water on the brush, so I had to get rid of some of the excess. But if you pull your brush down, and you kind of have to have it even with the top, but pull it at an angle like this. Of course, I haven't practiced. I'm going to probably mess this up ahead of time. So you pull it. I'm holding this in the air. I'm not holding it flat. Pull it. I got to get rid of the excess. I got too much paint on the brush. See, you can see as I do that, and that's why it's important to kind of test this, because all you want is that, and to practice that, because you just want that little bit of streak. See, just like right there, like that. That's all I want. Right, a little bit of streaking. Not too much, because it's very light. That's getting. I just want a little bit of texture there on the roof, just to kind of simulate like a rough hewn, steel roof. You want those. You want a little bit of lines, because that steel roofing has lines in it. But you just want a little bit of texture, a little bit of shadowing from the ribs that are in there, that are in the roof. Okay. Just to give it that texture. And then we're going to do the same thing. This is probably dry enough now. We can do the same thing coming down the sides of the barn to give it that barn texture. And again, you might want to practice just like I'm doing here. As you can see, it didn't turn out quite like I wanted it the first time. Except now we're just going to be pulling it straight down. And I've got my hand underneath my brush like this, right? So that I'm just kind of skimming the surface. I'm a little rusty myself here, like an old rusty barn. Okay. Test that one more time. And I'm going to just pull some lines down here like this. Of course, messed up right away, but that's okay. Just a little bit of roughness to it. It doesn't have to be perfect, because it's an old dilapidated barn anyway. So something like that is fine. Then when we come in, I don't have the picture in front of me. I have it up on my computer screen. Then what we're going to do is you're going to take like a fine tip brush, and what do I want? My little tiny, I don't know if I gave you guys one of these tiny brushes. You mix up some real dark black gray. Let's see if I got enough there. And you come in and you paint your little openings. Okay, you can even add a few lines. Maybe even with your liner brush. I don't know if this brush is fine enough. Yeah, I can do that. And we can do a few like dark lines here and there for a little bit more texture, or perhaps to kind of represent maybe like there's the siding is sort of cracked, the broken boards or something like that. But there's a little bit of an opening over here. There's kind of an old dilapidated, kind of door here like this. Then there's there's another one next to it. And, we want to try to do these maybe, a little bit differently, and then there's kind of a window opening, over here. It doesn't have to be perfect. Kind of do something like that. Throw a couple of lines in there again, for broken boards and so forth to kind of give it that texture. Maybe a couple near the bottom. Broken boards where the mice come in, that kind of a thing. And if your brush is a little crappy like this one, it's even better because it's good for adding some texture. And I might go just a little bit darker on this, underneath this overhang here, because I didn't quite get that exactly where I wanted it. And then the same thing over in here, on your other side, you're going to have some dark openings over here as well. There's a whole bunch of, this whole barn is missing. This is missing a whole bunch of siding over in here. But you've got to make that nice and black and dark. Maybe I can even darken my overhang over here a little bit. And that's about all there is to it. You just kind of do that rough texture. You paint in your openings, and you've got yourself a barn.